Have you ever wondered why some people seem to absorb all the emotional pain of the world, while others walk in peace, even in the midst of chaos? Do you feel that sometimes it carries the weight of pain that is not your own? What heavy environments, negative words, toxic attitudes reach you as if your soul is completely unprotected? And if I told you that there is a spiritual secret that can make you immune to emotional pain, negativity, the energies that drain your essence, and that Carl Jung deeply understood this secret? You are not here by chance. You are here because somehow your soul recognized this call. You may be tired of feeling so much. You may be wondering why it seems to be always the most affected, the most sensitive, the most impacted by everything around you. But what you haven't realized yet is that this sensitivity is not weakness. She is a key, a door for something bigger. And this video is the beginning of this reconnection journey with the strongest inside you. Carl Jung said that while what is within us remains unconscious, will continue to control our lives, and let's call it destination. Emotional pain, repetitive cycles of suffering, the feeling of living in the midst of negativity is just manifestations of something deeper, a disconnection between you and your own soul, a disconnection with what protects you, anchors you, guides you. But there is a way. There is a spiritual and psychological process that, when accessed, completely changes the way you feel, perceives, and reacts to the world around you. And that way begins now. This path begins when you understand that you no longer need to live vulnerable, exposed, absorbing everything. You can learn to shield your energy, to protect your soul, to feel without carrying, to observe without absorbing, to relate without getting lost. There is a spiritual secret that frees you from this silent pain, that makes you immune to the suffering that comes from outside. And no, that doesn't mean closing to the world. It means opening for your true essence. It means stopping out, which can only be activated inside. It means getting out of survival mode and entering the state of presence. Jung called this individuation the process of becoming who you really are. And when you start walking this way, you begin to realize that much of the pain you feel, it's not really yours. They are remnants of stories that were not yours, but you took over. These are external voices that you have confused with your own conscience. These are weights you carry for thinking you need, but you don't need it anymore. From now on, you will find out how to transform this sensitivity into spiritual strength, how to use your consciousness as protection, how to access the part of you that is above automatic reactions, above emotional confusion, above the energetic influence of the outside world. This video is a portal, and you have already taken the first step. Stay with me, because what comes next can radically change the way you deal with pain and show you, perhaps for the first time, how to live in peace even when everything around shouts chaos. But before we continue, I want to make a sincere request. If any part of this content has already touched you, even if it was just a sentence, a memory, a feeling, that's no wonder. This is a sign that this theme resonates with something deep within you. Something that may have been asking to be heard for a long time. And so it is so important that you not only watch, but actively participate in this journey. So right now, leave your like, not only as a mechanical gesture, but as a way of saying to the universe, I'm ready to shield myself emotionally. I'm ready to access this secret. This simple click may seem small, but it helps this video reach other souls that are also having to hear it. You are part of an awakening movement, and every movement begins with a choice. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, this is the perfect moment. Here, you will not find empty videos or shallow formulas. Here we talk from soul to soul, of pain, healing, energy, real spirituality. So you subscribe now, activate the bell, because the next videos will further deepen this process that you started here, and you deserve to go to the end on this journey. And to seal this moment, I want to invite you to write a sentence in the comments, but not any sentence. Write with intention, with truth, as if you were putting out something that had been stored for a long time. It can be like this: I choose to live in peace, armored of pain and negativity, or my soul is ready to vibrate above pain, or simply, this is my moment of awakening. Writing is an act, spiritual. It is a commitment to yourself. And in doing so, you anchor this energy, strengthen your intention, and inspire other people who are also looking for exactly what you are living now. Now, yes, we can follow, because what comes next will reveal one of the deepest points of Jung's philosophy. And maybe you never feel the same way after understanding what is behind emotional pain. Let's go together. A lot of people live imprisoned in emotions that don't even know how to name it. They suffer in silence day after day with a sense of anguish that seems to have no form, no beginning, no end. A pain that does not scream but accumulates like an invisible weight in the chest. A constant tension on the shoulders, a knot in the throat, a void that seems to live inside the stomach. And the frightening, often you don't even know exactly why you feel it all. There is no clear reason, there is no specific event. There is only the feeling, dense, confused, suffocating. You wake up and feel the weight of the day even before it begins. He goes to places and realizes that his energy is being drained, sucked by people, situations, or even thoughts that are not his own. Enter environments and feels exhausted, even without doing anything physically exhausting. Talk to certain people and feel your vibration go down, your peace to be stolen, your light slowly erased. And the worst, in many moments, you think the problem is you. But the problem is not you. The problem is how disconnected from your natural spiritual protection, of your emotional awareness, of your center. And when this happens, you become like a house with wide, open windows in the middle of a storm. Everything comes in, wind, dust, cold, noise. Everything invades you. Everything affects you. You become receptive to the chaos of the world, and it manifests itself as anxiety, sadness, confusion, apathy, chronic tiredness, and even physical diseases. This is the point where thousands of people are living right now, pressured in inherited emotions, pains that have been unconsciously absorbed, energies that are not yours, but now inhabit your energy field as if they were part of who you are. It's like carrying a stone, filled backpack, which were placed there by other people, other stories, some past, but now they seem to weigh as if they were yours. And that's where what Jung called unconscious emotional containment comes in. This is when you do not express, you do not understand, and do not release your emotions, and they turn into internal suffering. Because everything you don't welcome, it turns into a symptom. Not recognized anger becomes frustration. Unless sadness becomes apathy, the undisclosed hurt becomes resentment. And all this contaminates your energy, your body, your mind, your relationships. Often this silent emotional pain comes from something so old that you don't even remember. Comes from childhood, comes from living with authoritarian or absent figures. It comes from words that hurt, even when said in a joke. Comes from unfulfilled promises, of unlawful absences, of abandonment disguised as a presence. Jung talked a lot about it, how the unconscious keeps what the conscious could not deal with, and this emotional baggage accumulates until overflowing. And the most dangerous is that this accumulated pain becomes a lens. You start to see the world from it. It begins to interpret the gestures of others based on their wounds. A silence becomes rejection. An opinion becomes critical. An absence becomes abandonment. You start to react, not to the present, but to the past, what you haven't healed yet. And that imprisons you in cycles, repetition cycles, cycles of relationships that always end the same way, auto-sabotage cycles, of comparisons, of fear of trusting, of emotional escape, of blockages that prevent you from living your spiritual truth. All of this will move you away from your axis, your soul, your protection, and you start living with the constant feeling that something is wrong, that you are always tired, always too sensitive, always on the edge. But this sensitivity you carry is not a defect. She is a gift. She is a gift that was misunderstood, a gift that was repressed, a gift that was judged by those who never knew how to deal with depth. You feel a lot because you were born to feel. He was born to realize the invisible, to capture what the eyes don't see, to listen to what the world tries to hide. You are, as Jung would call, a bearer of the collective soul, someone who feels not only for himself, but also for others. And so you need to learn to protect yourself, because without protection, you are still a sponge, continues to absorb, continues to carry what is not yours. And that gets sick, not just emotionally, but spiritually. Remove you from your purpose, of your center, of your ability to manifest a life in harmony. And what was once sensitivity turns into overload. And you start asking yourself why everything is so heavy, why everything hurts so much, why it's so hard to maintain balance. The truth is that no one taught us to protect our energy. No one taught us to differentiate what is ours from what is from the other. No one taught us to create spiritual, emotional, energetic limits. We live in a world that values performance, doing, pleasing, but not feeling it. Do not listen to it, do not support you. And so let's follow emotionally exposed, spiritually needy, energetically contaminated. But this video, this journey, this conversation we are having here is exactly about breaking this cycle, about bringing to light what was hiding, about returning the keys to your own soul, because the truth is that you no longer need to suffer like this. You can learn to recognize your emotions before they master you, to realize when something is trying to invade your energy field, and especially to say no firmly and love to what does not belong to your truth. You can live with peace. You can live lightly. It can live with spiritual clarity, but it begins with conscience, with awakening, with decision. And that's exactly what you're doing now, choosing to see, choosing to get out of automatism, choosing to stop being a victim of invisible pain and become guardian of his own energy. Stay with me, because on the next step of this journey, I will show you how Carl Jung understood all this with impressive depth, and how he translated these invisible pains of the soul into something that can be understood, welcomed, and transformed. What comes next? You can finally give you the language you always sought to describe everything you have always felt, but you can never explain. Carl Jung spent his entire life plunged into the mysteries of the human soul. He was not just a psychologist, he was a true explorer of the psyche, a cartographer of the invisible, someone who understood that the pain we carry, the emotions that crush us, and the patterns that are repeated in our lives are not born from chance or from external forces, but something much more intimate and neglected, our distance from essence. For Jung, everything we feel, and often cannot explain, born of the disconnection between who we are on the surface and who we are in depth. And the greater this distance, the greater the suffering. The farther we are from our truth, the more vulnerable we become emotional pain, the negativity of others, to external projections. This is because the soul, when silenced, begins to manifest itself through the symptom. When you ignore your truth too long, the body screams, the mood oscillates, the mind collapses, and what seemed just a malaise becomes an entire existence full of internal confusion. Jung understood like no one else the functioning of the unconscious. He knew that the unconscious is not an enemy, nor a terrifying shadow. He is a forgotten ally, a silent master, a dimension of the soul that holds memories, pains, symbols, and forces that act all the time, even if you do not realize. And it is exactly this part of the psyche that determines how you feel, how you react, how you relate, and even how you attract certain people and situations. Most people live only from the ego, the most superficial part of the self, a layer of mind that tries to control, understand, rationalize, but that alone does not realize, because the ego is just the tip of the iceberg. And emotional pain, according to Jung, is born precisely when the ego tries to live disconnected from all of the being, when he refuses to dialogue with his soul, with the shadow, with the unconscious. This is why Jung talked so much about the process of individuation, a name that may seem complex at first glance, but that keeps in itself a deep meaning. Individuation is the way back to itself. It is the process of becoming who you really are, integrating all the parts you rejected, hid, or could not welcome. And when you start this process, you start a true spiritual journey, because there is nothing more sacred than inhabiting your own truth. Jung said suffering is the messenger who announces a disconnection, and that as long as you keep ignoring the symbolic language of the unconscious, you will continue to suffer without knowing why, will continue to absorb the pain of the world as if it were yours. It will continue to attract relationships that hurt you because they are just mirroring their parts that have not yet been recognized. You will continue to feel lost, even surrounded by people, because the true company you are looking for is your own presence. He understood that emotional suffering is not a punishment but a sign, a request for reconnection, a summons of the soul for you to return to the center. So you stop running away, so that you accept that living only makes sense when it is lived from the heart and not from the masks. That no external technique, no distraction, no fast or immediate solution replaces deep dive into self-knowledge. Carl Jung talked about the shadow, and it said that the shadow is all that you are, but you don't want to be, everything you feel but try to hide, everything that is alive within you, but that you pushed into the pawns of the unconscious for fear, shame, or trauma. And as long as this shadow is not looked at, it will take control. She will live for you, will make choices for you, will sabotage your relationships, will block your prosperity. It will arrest you in emotional pains that seem to come from outside, but which, in fact, are the exact reflection of what you don't want to face inside. And this is where the true awakening begins. When you understand that your emotional field is not a fragile field, but a sacred field, that your unconscious is not the villain, but the guide, that your pain is not the end, but the entry of a new path. Jung believed that by bringing to light what is unconscious, you begin to transform. It's not about erasing what you feel. It is about understanding what you feel. It is about rescuing the hidden symbol behind the pain. Because each emotion carries a message. Each pain has an archetype behind it. And when you learn to decode this language, you become free. Imagine for a moment you are in a dark room where everything seems threatening. You hear sounds, feel afraid, shrink. But when it turns on the light, he realizes that none of it was that scary. Jung said that the light of consciousness is what transforms the dark room of the soul into a sacred space, and that when you illuminate what you fear, it no longer has power over you. Now stop and think. How many times have you felt emotional pain for trying to please someone, for repressing your truth, for living according to expectations that were never yours? How many times have you absorbed the negativity of people who didn't even know about your story, but who left deep marks on your energy? This all has root. It originates. And Carl Jung knew that. He gave us tools to return to origin, to stop treating the symptom and start cure the cause. And the cause, almost always, is disconnecting with your true self, with your soul, with its most subtle and pure energy field. And while this connection is not restored, you keep living in automatic, believing that life is suffering, that love hurts, that people suck, that peace is unreachable. But all this can change, and it all starts with the simple act of looking inside. And now that you understand the spiritual, psychological, and energetic basis of what Jung taught, it's time to step further. because in the following you will understand in a practical, deep and transformative way how to apply this knowledge to your life, your daily life, in your relationships, in your emotional field. You will understand how to protect yourself, how to recognize the signs of emotional pain before it dominates you, and how to shield your energy with conscience and presence. Stay with me, because what comes now is where it all starts to make sense inside you. According to Carl Jung, the more unconscious you are from your soul, the more vulnerable you become emotional pain. And this is not just a beautiful metaphor. It is a spiritual and psychological truth that manifests itself every day in your life, in your emotions, in your relationships, in the way you deal with the world. Emotional pain does not arise out of nowhere. It is the language that the soul uses when it is being ignored. It is the sound of an inner call that is being suffocated by external voices. You feel emotional pain because something inside you is being violated, something is out of place. And most people try to silence this pain with distractions, vices, exaggerated productivity, empty relationships, material compensation. But the more you run away from you, the more the pain increases. But the emptiness grows. And more you become vulnerable to negativity, external influences, emotional cycles that drain your energy and fragment your identity. Jung said that the secret of emotional and spiritual immunity is in the process of individuation. This apparently technical name carries one of the greatest treasures of self-knowledge. Individual is, in essence, the way back to its true self. It is the process by which you are gradually integrating all parts of oneself that have been rejected, repressed, or forgotten throughout life. It is the moment when you stop living according to external expectations and begin to live in alignment with your deeper essence. Imagine a soul divided into 1,000 pieces, a molded piece to please parents, another to fit into social groups, another to survive the trauma, another to meet the demands of the world. And you follow, without realizing it, getting more and more from your I, spiritual groupity. Individual is the return of this integrity. It's the moment you decide to collect each piece and say, now I'll be back to myself. Now I get whole again. And why does it make you immune to emotional pain? Because when you live fragmented, you feel intensely everything that is not yours. You absorb energies, emotions, words, and looks like absolute truths. But when you live from your essence, you develop a silent force that protects you. You keep feeling, but now you feel clearly. You keep realizing it, but now you know what you're and what is not. You keep relating, but now you don't nullify yourself. You don't get empty. Don't abandon yourself. Individual makes you a spiritual fortress, not a rigid wall, but a living temple. You begin to realize that what once affected you deeply now just goes through you. You see, understand, feel, but it doesn't let yourself dominate. You stop carrying weights that are not yours. You stop reacting automatically. You stop identifying with everything that happens to you, and it begins to respond with conscience, with presence, with emotional maturity. Jung teaches us that the unconscious is not a dark abyss. It is a fertile field, full of life, symbols, messages, and forgotten parts of your being. When you approach this field, you are no longer hostage to pain, because it begins to understand what she is trying to say. And then, instead of suffocating, you welcome. Instead of fighting yourself, you hear yourself. Instead of running away, you approach. And this approach, this intimate encounter with your soul, is what begins to create within you a true spiritual shield. You become someone who feels everything, but it doesn't drown at all. Because now you have the map. You know the internal paths. You know where certain emotions come from. You recognize the triggers. You respect your limits. You honor your cycles. And especially, you no longer deliver your energy to everything and everyone, because you know her value, because you know who you are. This is the secret of spiritual immunity according to Jung. True protection begins when you stop fighting your pain and begin to understand it, when you stop living as an external victim and become the protagonist of your energy field. When you understand that the world will remain chaotic, people will remain challenging, emotions will continue to emerge, but none of this has the power to destroy you anymore, because now you are centered. It is present. It is connected with the wisest and most true part of itself. But for that to happen, it takes courage. Courage to look inside. Courage to revisit memories. Courage to see without masks. Courage to get out of automatic mode. And especially, the courage to be who you were born to be, even if it means disappointing other expectations. Jung said that the privilege of a life is to become who you really are. And this is the call that is echoing inside you now. Are you listening? Because what comes next is the next step on this journey. This is the time where you will start applying, in practice, this knowledge. You will learn how to cultivate this emotional immunity every day, in small actions, in subtle decisions, in habits that become portals of reconnection with your soul. The next step is living practice of what your conscience has already begun to understand. Stay here, because now is the true alchemy will start. Think with sincerity. How many times throughout your life have you hurt yourself not for something that someone said directly, but for what you absorbed without realizing it? How many times did you feel a pain that seemed to be yours, but deep down you were not born of you? How many times have you tried to fit into places, relationships, or situations that hurt your energy, but it still remained? Because I wanted to be accepted, because I was afraid of rejection, why could I not say? Perhaps what you called pain was in fact your deepest self trying to tell you, this is not your place, this is not your vibration, this is not your truth. But you silenced, you adapted, you have moved away from you, and little by little, what was lightness became weight, what was clarity became confusion, and what was just punctual discomfort turned into continuous suffering. How many times have you felt that the atmosphere became heavy after someone arrived? How many times have you left a conversation feeling inexplicable tiredness? How many times did you sleep well but woke up as if you had carried the world on your back? These symptoms, which many ignore or treat as too sensitivity, are actually spiritual signs, energy alerts. They are the language of your soul, trying to protect you, trying to warn you that there is something that needs to be reviewed, clean, closed. Carl Jung said that the soul speaks through symbols, sensations, dreams, subtle impulses. And if you don't listen, she shouts in the form of emotional pain, existential crisis, feeling of emptiness, screams in the form of anxiety without apparent cause, of discouragement without logical explanation, of disconnecting life. But the root of it is not out there. It is born when you disconnect from who you are, when you ignore your own energy in the name of maintaining appearances, when you stop listening to maintain bonds that actually do not see you. It is a silent process, almost imperceptible. You will give in a little here, a little there. It is tolerating small emotional aggressions. It is swallowing words that I would like to say. It is shaping to fit. It decreases to please. And without realizing it, when you look in the mirror, you no longer know who it is. The person who smiles outside has nothing to do with the one who cries inside. The soul is present but suffocated, waiting, begging to be remembered. And the most subtle and cruel is that many of these pains have been naturalized. You have learned that everyone suffers, that relationships are really difficult, that growing hurts, that life is like this, and accepted. He agreed to carry bales that were not his own. He accepted himself to anesthetize with distractions. He agreed to live with internal noises because it seemed easier than facing silence. But silence, silence is where your soul lives, and that's where your healing is. You were not made to live fragmented. You were not made to live disconnected from your truth. You were made to expand, to be whole, to vibrate with authenticity, to feel conscientious. And that doesn't mean living in a bubble or fleeing human pain. It means living clearly, with discernment. It means knowing what belongs to you and what does not belong. It means knowing how to say to what nourishes you and not to what exhausts you. When you start to observe yourself carefully, you begin to notice these signs. You realize that emotional pain is not always yours, that sometimes it is the echo of the pain of someone you welcomed. You realize that tiredness is not just physical but spiritual, that the anger that takes you often does not even originate in the present moment, but in ancient memories, in unwrit words, in past pain that are still there, asking to be recognized. This conscience is liberating, because she takes you from the place of victim and puts you in the center of your energy field. You understand that you no longer need to absorb everything, that you can feel without carrying, that can listen without contaminating, that can love without nullifying, and that this is a fresh start, a return home, a return to you. Jung invites us to face these emotions with courage, not to escape the discomfort, not judging what we feel as right or wrong, strong or weak, beautiful or ugly. He said that all we feel is legitimate. Everything is a message. Everything is material for transformation. And when you stop escaping what you feel, you start to transform. Imagine for a moment that every emotional pain you carry is like a sealed letter, and inside it is a message of your soul, a revelation, an insight, a direction. But instead of opening the letter, you push it to the bottom of the drawer, joins with others. He forgets. And suddenly you are living surrounded by unpaid letters, unadored messages. And that's why everything seems heavy, confused, dense. Now imagine that you start opening one by one, calmly, with presence, with love. And there in each one there is a key, a memory, a piece of your being that was waiting to go back. This is the process of individuation. This is the dive into the unconscious. This is the true spiritual healing that Jung defended, to welcome each part of his conscious and then live with wholeness. You are not alone on this journey. There are many souls awakening. There are many hearts tired of carrying what is not yours. There are many people just like you who are beginning to realize that pain is not an eternal burden. It is a door, a passage, a bridge to a new state of being. And now that you've started crossing this bridge, which comes next, will teach you how to protect this new space of consciousness, because it is not enough just to recognize your pain. You need to learn to take care of your energy, to shield your soul, to strengthen your vibrational field. And that is exactly what we will explore in the next step. Stay with me, because now we will come down from the plane of perception to the plan of practice. And you will understand once and for all how to start protecting yourself from negativity and cultivate the emotional immunity your soul deserves so much. Imagine your soul as a home, a house made of vibration, memory, subtle sensations, and sacred silence. A house where each room represents a part of you, your light, your shadow, your wounds, your courage, your intuition, your story. Now imagine that this house over the years has been visited by many people. Some came carefully, with presence, with love, entered, sat on the floor of the room, and here am your truths. Others arrived in a hurry, noise, with demand. They opened the drawers, rummaged through their symbols, criticized their inner decoration. And before you noticed, they had already left the energy of the house disorganized, heavy, loaded with confusion. If the doors of your soul are wide open all the time, anyone enters. And not everyone who comes in comes with good intentions. Some come in just to use your space, steal your silence, drain your energy. Others come just to see each other in your mirror, and not like the reflection, break everything around. But if, for fear of being injured, you lock all the doors and close all the windows, neither light comes in, neither love comes in, not even healing can pass. The key is knowing how to open, only for those who vibrate with their truth. This simple metaphor carries one of the deepest lessons of spiritual self-knowledge, learning to make an energy screening in the soul itself. It's not about isolating yourself, but about being selective with whom you allow you to access your internal spaces. Jung said that the unconscious is like a house with many rooms, some well lit, some still dark, and that we needed, little by little, to learn to light these lights inside before opening the door to the world. Also think about your energy field like a garden. Everything you feel, thinks, and consumes it becomes a seed. If you live by watering thoughts of fear, self-pointing, guilt, and resentment, your garden is filled with weeds. But if you begin to water your conscience with silence, truth, forgiveness, and presence, there is such a strong energy to flourish there that neither the storm of emotional pain can destroy. Now imagine that every day you wake up and wears an invisible energy outfit. This outfit is made of your emotions, your vibration, your beliefs, your morning thoughts. If you start the day already criticizing yourself, comparing yourself, charging yourself, this outfit rips, gets dirty, becomes vulnerable. Any crooked look crosses, any word crosses. You feel too much, absorbs too much, easily disorganizes. But if you start the day in silence, breathing deeply, stating your presence, saying to yourself, "Today I choose to protect my field," then this outfit becomes a spiritual cloak, an invisible breastplate made of presence and self-love. Life does not stop testing us. The environments remain challenging. People keep oscillating. But when you start living from your inner home and no longer from the street, everything changes. You stop running after external acceptance. Stop seeking approval everywhere, because now you live from the inside out. And it is this living that makes you immune to what before breaking you into pieces. Another powerful image: think of your energy like the water of a lake. When your soul is quiet, the lake surface is smooth, clear, serene. Any movement can be clearly perceived. But when your soul is agitated, wounded, full of interference, the lake gets cloudy, angry. And then any stone that someone throws there, a comment, a criticism, a provocation, causes disproportionate waves. You react. If you offend yourself, defend yourself. But deep down, the problem was not the stone. It was the state of the lake. Jung said self-knowledge is the process of calming the lake, to clean the water, to return to transparency. So when something external happens, you have enough clarity to realize, is this mine or is it from the other? Does that deserve an answer or just silence? Does that resonate with my truth, or is it just an attempt to disorganize me? And the answer to these questions does not come from the mind, comes from the soul, comes from your center. It comes from the internal space that is only accessed with conscience. There is no more powerful technique than presence. When you are whole, no one can get you out of the axis. When you are rooted in essence, no matter what happens outside, you follow firm inside. Now bring to the mind an image that Jung loved, that of the maze. He said that the human soul is a maze full of false paths, dead fish, and a center hidden in the heart of everything. And that the mission of being awake is to cross this maze with patience, courage, and presence. The emotional pain we often feel comes from being lost in this maze, running from side to side without direction, hitting inner walls, trying to find exits that lead nowhere. But when you stop, breathe, close your eyes, and listen, you realize that the center is right there. He never left you. You were the one who was running around him. And the more you inhabit this center, the simpler everything becomes. The world remains the same, but you change. The energy changes, the impact changes. The way you position yourself in the face of things changes. You stop being a battlefield and become temple. Have you ever imagined what happens to your life when you act from this inner temple, when your prophet? They leave them from silence and not the impulse. When are your decisions guided by intuition and not the need to please? When are your limits defined with love and not fear? When is your soul clean enough to be your own shield? This is what the process of individuation, so advocated by Jung, proposes. To become whole so that the world will no longer be a threat and become a mirror. When you are whole, you recognize what is reflex and what is projection, and then you start living with truth. Now, all that we are talking about here may seem too symbolic, too metaphorical, but that's the point. The soul does not speak with logic. The soul speaks with image, with feeling, with symbols. And that is why this kind of reflection is so powerful. It does not go through the rational mind. It speaks directly to your energy heart. And it is from this language that we will continue. Because now that you have seen the soul as a home, as a lake, as a temple, as a garden, you are ready to see your own life as a spiritual construction, a sacred field that can and should be protected. But this protection begins with small choices, daily habits, attitudes that no one sees, but which turn everything inside. Stay with me, because the next part of this video will show you exactly this, how to apply this knowledge in everyday life, relationships, simpler decisions, and start building your emotional and spiritual immunity today. Whenever you feel emotional pain, stop before reacting, before blaming, before closing, before seeking distractions. Just stop and ask honestly, is this pain really mine? Or is it something I absorbed from the environment, from someone else, a memory that doesn't even belong to me anymore? This simple question can completely change your internal state, because much of the suffering you feel is not originated in the now. It comes from invisible layers, from the collective unconscious, from unresolved energy bonds of old trauma, repetitions you still carry unknowingly. Jung said that the unconscious is a large underground river that connects us to all, and that we often feel pain that belongs to other generations, other stories, other times. And if you do not develop the ability to discern what is yours and what is not, you live as an open field where everything and everyone moves. Therefore, the first spiritual practice to develop emotional immunity is this: the conscious pause, the silence of inner listening. Silence is not absence of sound. Silence is total presence. That's when you close your eyes and instead of fleeing the pain, you enter it. As who enters a forest in respect, without haste, without judgments. It is there, in this state, that you begin to realize emotional pain is often an echo, not an original scream. It is reflex, not essence, and this only finds out when you learn to listen without reacting. The second practice is to write. Yes, write. With paper, pen, soul, and intention. Write everything you feel, even if it seems confusing, wrong, silly, or ugly. Jung was a deep defender of spontaneous writing as a tool for the integration of the shadow. He himself maintained his red book for years, where he recorded the dialogues with his unconscious, with his symbols, with his fears, and he taught that when we write, we organize. When we organize, we integrate. And when we integrate, the pain is no longer a threat and becomes wisdom. The third practice is to observe. Observe without judging. Observe without trying to control. This is what Jung himself called the transcendent function of consciousness, a state where you become a witness to your own internal movements. You feel the anger, but notes. Feel the sadness, but notes. Fear, but don't dip it, you just let it pass like a dark cloud in the clear sky of your soul. Feeling is not being dominated. This is one of the greatest secrets of spiritual immunity. Over time, you are developing something very rare: vibrational emotional intelligence. It is more than understanding what you feel. It is realizing when an emotion is not in resonance with your true field. It is to feel, for example, that the tiredness you woke up carrying, it's not yours. It's from the house. It is from the environment. It is from the collective. And right now, instead of judging or sinking, you act. Make an energy bath, light an incense, sometimes meditate, clean the field with conscience. You are responsible for keeping your vibration intact. The fourth practice is breathing. And we are not talking about the automatic breathing of the physical body. We are talking about a spiritual breath. Stop for a few minutes and simply breathe with intention. Inspire light, drop density. Inspire presence, drop noise. Inspire forgiveness, release judgment. Breathe as if inviting the soul to return to the body, because most of the time, the soul leaves when you find no room to exist, but the breath brings back. The anchor breathing, the breath purifies. The fifth practice is to learn to say no. Not for what weighs, not for what you consume, not for what drives you away from your essence. This no can be said kindly, but firmly, clearly, with love. It is the no that delimits its sacred field. Jung said individuation begins the moment you stop being what others expect and start to be who you were born to be. And this way, albeit lonely at first, is the only one that leads to true spiritual freedom. The sixth practice is the presence. Be where you are. Feel what you feel. Speak what needs to be said. Eating consciously. Walk with perception. Choose what you consume. Question what you hear. The spiritual presence is not magical. It is a daily training. You can practice it right now. Simply looking around, feeling his feet on the ground, hearing his breath, and at that moment, recognizing that you are alive, whole, sacred, here. The seventh practice is to cultivate what Jung called relationship with the self. The self, for him, is the totality of the soul. It is the wisest, intuitive, and deep part of your being. When you reconnect with the self, you no longer need to look for answers away, because the self guides. The self instructs, the self shows. But to listen to the self, you need to create space. Internal space, silence, fertile emptiness, less noise, less opinion, less social network, more listening, more nature, more presence. And finally, practice the kindness. Not forced, socially accepted kindness, but deep kindness, like you, with your pain, with your process. Give time to time. Honor each step, each fall, each restart, because the soul's path is not linear. It is cyclic, spiral, full of pauses, turns, dives. But he is, above all, his. And when you honor this, no one else can unbalance you. All that you are learning here, it's not theory. It is soul practice. It is energy protection. It is living philosophy. It is the beginning of a new state of being. And in the next, you will see how these small changes create great internal transformations. If you have gotten here and it has touched your soul, start anchoring this learning in the comments. Write with intention. From today, I choose to live with presence and protection. Or if you prefer, I am ready to discern what is mine and what is from the other. Stay here, because the next step is the vibrational transformation that begins when you decide to be faithful to your truth. When you start living aligned with your soul, everything changes, but not the way the world usually promises. The pain still exists. External chaos continues to happen. Difficult people continue to emerge. The world continues to spin as it always turned, but something fundamental within you realizes you are no longer hit the same way. The pain does not knock you down. She reveals you. It becomes a symbol, signal, language. And the negativity of others no longer contaminates you because your vibration is no longer compatible with what you use to attract. This is the true spiritual transformation. It is not about becoming unreachable or perfect. It is not about erasing the pain. It is about crossing it with conscience. It is about leaving the role of victim of life and occupying the sacred place of protagonist of his energy field. That's when you understand that pain is just a messenger. That discomfort is just a reminder that you have moved away from your truth. That chaos is not punishment, it is an invitation, and this invitation can only be accepted by those ready to be responsible for you, by whom he is no longer willing to deliver his power to what is out, by those who already understood that the center of the world is not in the circumstances, neither in people nor in events, but in the conscience with which you live all this. Carl Jung said that suffering ceases when the soul finds meaning. And this is the key to transformation. Pain only dominates when you still don't understand what it wants to teach you. But when you watch with the eyes of your soul, and no longer with the eyes of fear, it all starts to gain a new shape. You don't suffer less, but suffers with wisdom. You feel no less, but it feels clearly. You don't close, but neither does it surrender to anyone who beats his energy door. What once disorganized you now reorganizes you, which before it would hurt you for days, now teaches you in minutes, because you are no longer emotionally vulnerable and became spiritually sensitive. And spiritual sensitivity is not weakness. It is high perception. It is vibrational intelligence. It is sharp intuition. It is the ability to feel what needs to be felt, but not to get lost in what does not belong to you. It is as if you start living in another plan, still here in this world, but vibrating at another frequency. A frequency where the anger of others does not, and it reaches, because you see the pain behind the attack. Where judgment does not hurt you, because you know that those who judge are still stuck in the shadow itself. Where absence does not destroy you, because you have learned to be company. Where the silence of the other does not despair you, because you have learned to listen to your own voice. This state of consciousness is what many call awakening. And the awakening is not a mystical event that happens magically. It is a constant choice. It is the result of many small internal deaths, characters' deaths, masks, old beliefs, stories that no longer fit their new vibration. And every time you die a little for what you made you suffer, you are reborn more whole, stronger, lighter. You start to realize that the world is the same, but you are no longer the same. What paralyzed you now propels you. What hurt you now guides you. What confused you now clarifies you. And that didn't come from outside. It didn't come from a guru. It didn't come from a video. It didn't come from a book. It came from you, of your delivery, of your listening, of your decision not to abandon yourself anymore. And the more you choose, the more you realize how much you sabotaged in the past. How much emotional crumbs accepted, how much has moved away from your soul in the name of acceptance, how much was shut up to maintain peace, how much pretended not to feel so as not to disturb, and all this was important. All this brought you here. But now you no longer allow yourself to live in half. You live whole, even if it scares, even if it drives away, even if not everyone understands. Because now you understand, and when your soul understands, you break free. Free from the roles that imprisoned you, free from the standards that limited you, free from the masks that suffocated their light. And this is the point where the true reaffirmation happens. You look in the mirror, not just with the eyes of the body, but with the eyes of the soul, and recognize who you are, with everything you feel, with everything that has lived, with everything that is still in process, and even without being ready, you feel, I'm enough, I'm whole, I'm light, I'm true. This moment of reunion with its essence is silent. There are no fireworks, it has no applause, but there is something that no external approval can offer. It has peace, a peace that does not depend on anyone, that is not shaken with the external, a peace that springs from the simple fact that you are living aligned with your soul. And when that happens, the negativity of the world no longer finds shelter in you, because now your vibration speaks for you. And vibration is more powerful than any word. People feel you before they understand you. Environments recognize you. The universe responds to its frequency, not its appearance. And that's why, by aligning yourself with your essence, you begin to attract other people, other situations, other opportunities that also actually vibrates. And even if, on the outside, your life seems the same, inside everything has changed, because now your pain is directed, your feeling has purpose, your soul has a voice, and you have learned that emotional immunity is not cold. It is freedom. It is choice. It is spiritual maturity. It is to say yes only to what resonates with your truth, and no to everything you try to get back to old versions of yourself. If you got here, it's because something inside you recognized this truth. And this is not by chance. Perhaps your soul received exactly what you needed right now. A memory, clarity, a boost of your return to you. Now, I want to make you a direct invitation from the heart. Subscribe to the channel right now, because this is just the beginning. If this video spoke to you, imagine what is yet to come. Here, each content is one more step in its process of awakening, healing, and emotional protection. And if it made sense to you, leave your like now. It's not just a button. It's a way to seal this moment with presence, a simple gesture that helps this message reach other souls that are also ready for this transformation. And before you leave, write here in the comments a phrase that anchor this new vibration in you. It can be like this: I choose to vibrate above pain and protect my soul consciously. Or if you prefer something more direct, my frequency is now that of presence. Writes with intention. This is not just a comment, it is an energy code. It's your soul saying, I woke up and I'm here. And most importantly, the next video is already appearing here on the screen. He is the continuation of this journey. Click now and come with me. Let's further deepen this way, light and reconnect with everything you really are.